Hi, I'm Jim Uckel, the City of Flagstaff's Wastewater Treatment Manager. I manage the Wildcat Hill Water Reclamation Plant and the Rio de Flag Wastewater Treatment Plant.
These two plants treat millions of gallons of wastewater daily so that it can be released or used as reclaimed water. Proposition 441, a bond question on the ballot this November, includes funding for new equipment at both the Wildcat Hill and the Rio de Flag plants. This virtual tour will provide a greater understanding of the wastewater reclamation process and how the new equipment will be used if approved by the voters. Welcome to the Wildcat Hill Water Reclamation Plant. This plant has been in operation for over 50 years, treating Flagstaff's wastewater into Class A reclaimed water for reuse and release. Wastewater goes through a number of processes to extract the waste from the water, and each step is critical to produce the highest quality A+ reclaimed water for our city. The process used here at Wildcat is very similar to the wastewater process used at the Rio de Flag plant. I'll point out those differences along the way. Let's follow the wastewater through the reclamation process. The influent is where the raw wastewater enters the plant from the sewer pipes around town. Think of the wastewater collection system as a tree with small branches reaching out into the community to each house. Smaller branches then connect with the larger branches, culminating in the trunk, which is the wastewater treatment plant. It's important to note that the wastewater is 99.9% water and 0.1% solids. After the wastewater enters the plant, it flows through the bar screens, which are a type of grate that removes large pieces of debris like wood, plastic bags, and toys. This process protects the plant equipment against debris getting caught in the pumps and the valves. One of the most troublesome types of debris are flushable wipes. These wipes do not dissolve and frequently clog pipes. Never put these down your drains. After it flows through the bar screens, the water enters the aerated grit removal chamber. During this step, air is injected into the water so that things like sand, rock, gravel, and glass drop to the bottom of the chamber for disposal. Next, the wastewater travels to the primary clarifier. Clarifiers slow the speed of the wastewater to allow the solids to settle down to the bottom. The Wildcat Hill plant has a series of 4 primary clarifying tanks for this purpose, which removes about 40% of the solids from the water. The settled solids from the primary clarifiers are next sent to the anaerobic digesters. Anaerobic digestion is a biological process where bacteria break down the solids in the wastewater to the basic elements of water, carbon, and methane gas. Digesters perform a critical task in breaking down solids in the wastewater. Prop 441 will provide funding for the construction of additional digesters. This is important because the city is currently at full capacity for processing solids, and the additional digesters will ensure that we can meet the wastewater demands of our community. The methane gas created by the digestion process can be captured and utilized to generate power and heat through the cogeneration units. These cogeneration units convert the methane gas into electricity that then powers the wastewater treatment process. In addition to funding for additional digesters, Prop 441 will also provide funding for a new cogeneration unit, which will allow for more efficient energy production at the Wildcat Hill plant. Now that we know what happens to the solids that have been separated out by the primary clarifier, let's talk about the remaining wastewater. After the water leaves the primary clarifiers, it is pumped further along its journey by the primary effluent pump station, PEPS. The PEPS system keeps the water flowing through the plant, and if it failed, the plant would shut down. Prop 441 will provide funding to replace the old system with a blend of high and low volume pumps for peak efficiency at varied flows. This system will address the current and future needs, providing greater operational flexibility and energy efficiency. The PEP system pumps water from the primary clarifiers to the integrated fixed film activated sludge process, also known as IFUS. Remember, at this point, 60% of the remaining solids are still suspended in the water. During IFUS, the wastewater mixes with the sludge that contains microorganisms that start breaking down the organic solids. The water then becomes activated sludge, meaning that the water is activated with living microorganisms. At the Rio de Flag wastewater reclamation plant, this step of the process looks a little bit different. Blowers are used at the Rio de Flag plant to blow oxygen into the water and feed the bacteria. Prop 441 will also provide funding for the new blowers that will provide the right amount of oxygen needed to make this process successful. What do most people do at Thanksgiving? They eat. That is the primary effluent, food for the microbiology. The microbiology are the diners. What does grandma or grandpa do after eating? He or she takes a nap or watches football. That is the secondary clarifiers. The solids settle and the clean water rises to the surface. What else do we do? Second graders are the best ones to answer this question. Go to the bathroom. The other answer is go back for pie. Both are correct, and we call going to the bathroom wasting. Some of the biology is removed and sent to Wildcat Hill's anaerobic digesters. The other portion is returned and mixed with the primary effluent back for pie. Next, the wastewater, which is now activated sludge, flows into the secondary clarifiers, where the remaining solids settle to the bottom of the tank. At this point, 99% of the solids have been removed from the wastewater. Now the water is lifted to the filter building for microfiltration. The filter building has two types of filters: disc filters, which will remove any particles larger than 10 microns, and sand filters, which will remove any particles as small as 5 microns. Particles this small are not even visible to the human eye. After being filtered, the water is disinfected with chlorine for 15 minutes, and the excess chlorine is then removed. At this point, the water is fully treated to Class A+, meeting the standards from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality for reclaimed water. It could be pumped into the reclaim system or released into Pitcher Canyon or the Rio de Flag. During summer, about 50% of the reclaimed water from Wildcat Hill and about 90% of the reclaimed water from the Rio de Flag plant is utilized to irrigate parks, schools, golf courses, and sent to NAU for various uses. One additional project that will be funded by Prop 441 is the purchase of backup generators for the Rio de Flag plant. While the Wildcat Hill plant has backup generators, the Rio de Flag does not. Having backup generators at both Flagstaff's wastewater treatment plants will allow both plants to run during power outages. So to conclude, Prop 441 will provide funding for multiple projects within the Wildcat Hill and the Rio de Flag wastewater plants, including new digesters, new cogeneration equipment, an updated pump system, new blowers, and new backup generators. Thanks for joining me on this tour. To learn more about how Prop 441 funding would be used, visit flagstaffbonds2022.com.